Welcome to my channel. Have you ever felt nervous just thinking about speaking English in front of people? Maybe you have tried to say a few sentences, but your mind suddenly went blank. Your heart starts beating fast, your hands feel shaky, and you forget even simple words. Don't worry, you are not alone. Many people feel the same way when they speak English for the first time. Today, I am going to share my story of giving my first speech in English. I will tell you how I was scared, how I made mistakes, and most importantly, how I gained confidence step by step. If you stay with me till the end, you will learn practical tips and simple tricks that will help you give your first speech in English without fear. You will also see that speaking English is not about being perfect. It is about trying, learning, and improving. So get ready, because today's lesson will change the way you think about speaking English. Stay with me, and let's start this exciting journey together. Chapter 1. I still remember the day my teacher announced that every student would have to give a short speech in English. My name was on the list, and the moment I heard it, a wave of fear ran through me. My palms became sweaty, my heart started beating faster, and my mind went completely blank. I sat in my chair and looked around at my classmates. Some of them seemed excited, while others looked as nervous as I felt. I kept thinking, what if I forget my words? What if I make mistakes? What if everyone laughs at me? At that moment, I realized that fear is a normal part of trying something new. Everyone experiences it, even those who look confident. The key is not to avoid fear, but to face it and find ways to handle it. Fear often comes because we imagine the worst possible outcome. Our mind tells us, if you speak, you might fail, or you will look silly. But the truth is, most people are not paying attention to your mistakes. They are focused on themselves, on their own fears, and on their own thoughts. This realization helped me calm down a little. I understood that it is okay to be nervous, and it is okay to make mistakes. Mistakes are part of learning, and they do not define who you are. They only show that you are trying something new, something brave. Before my first speech, I spent a lot of time thinking about what could go wrong. I imagined forgetting my first line, stumbling over words, or being laughed at. These thoughts increased my fear. I realized that I needed to change my mindset. Instead of thinking about what could go wrong, I decided to focus on what I could do right. I told myself, I may be nervous, but I can try my best. I can say simple sentences, speak slowly, and finish my speech. This simple shift in thinking made a big difference. It gave me a small sense of control over my fear. I also learned that preparation is the first step to confidence. I started writing down simple sentences for my speech. I did not try to use difficult words or long sentences because I knew I could forget them under pressure. I wrote short, easy sentences that I could remember. For example, I wrote, "My name is Ali. I am 10 years old. I like reading books. My favorite subject is English." These sentences were simple, but they gave me a foundation. I also practiced saying them aloud, slowly, several times. I noticed that my brain started to remember the words naturally. Even if I was nervous, I would have something prepared to say. Another thing I learned before my first speech was to practice in small steps. I did not try to give the whole speech at once at the beginning. Instead, I practiced one sentence at a time. I practiced standing in front of a mirror, speaking to myself, and smiling. I also practiced with my parents at home. I asked them to listen and give feedback. This small practice gave me more confidence each day. It showed me that I could handle speaking in English, even if it was just a few sentences. During those days of preparation, I also noticed the importance of breathing and staying calm. Every time I felt nervous, I took a deep breath and counted to 3. This simple action helped me slow down my heartbeat and think more clearly. I learned that controlling your body helps control your mind. When you feel fear, your body reacts first. By controlling your breathing, you give your brain a chance to focus on your words instead of fear. Finally, I learned the importance of believing in myself. Even if my speech was not perfect, I could still try. I realized that the first speech is not about being perfect. It is about starting, learning, and improving. Everyone begins somewhere. Every fluent English speaker was once a beginner, standing in front of a class, feeling the same fear I felt. This thought motivated me. I realized that my fear was temporary, but the courage I would gain from trying would stay with me forever. By the end of this chapter, I was nervous, yes, but also determined. I had prepared simple sentences, practiced many times, controlled my breathing, and changed my mindset. I told myself, no matter what happens, I will go in front of the class and try my best. This decision, small as it may seem, was the first step toward confidence. It was the moment I understood that speaking English is not about knowing every word or being perfect. It is about courage, preparation, and the willingness to try. This chapter ends here, but the story continues. The next chapter will take you to the day of my first speech, where fear and preparation met, and where I learned a lesson that changed my journey with English forever. If you have ever felt afraid of speaking English, you will find yourself in this chapter. Remember, fear is natural, but it is not permanent. With preparation, practice, and belief in yourself, you can overcome it. Your journey begins with a single brave step, just like mine did. Chapter 2. The day after I decided to face my fear, I started preparing my first speech in English. Preparation, I realized, was the key to confidence. I knew that if I stood in front of the class without a plan, fear would take over completely. So I began by choosing a topic that was simple and easy to talk about. I wanted to speak about myself, my hobbies, and my favorite things. I avoided complicated topics like science or history because I knew that difficult words would increase my stress and make me forget sentences. Choosing a simple topic was the first step toward success. It made me feel that this speech was possible and not impossible. Next, I focused on writing short and simple sentences. I remembered that long sentences and difficult words would only make me nervous. I wrote sentences like, "My name is Ali. I am 10 years old. I like reading books. My favorite color is blue. I have a small dog. I like playing football. These sentences were easy to remember, and they were enough to express who I was. I also realized something important. Perfection was not the goal. Speaking clearly and completing the speech was more important than using big or fancy words. By keeping my sentences short and simple, I gave myself a solid foundation. Once I had my sentences ready, I began practicing. I read my speech aloud several times every day. At first, my pronunciation was not perfect, and I made mistakes. I stumbled over some words, and sometimes I forgot my lines. But I did not stop. I kept practicing, slowly and carefully. I also recorded my voice while practicing. Listening to my own voice was strange at first, but it helped me notice which words I was pronouncing incorrectly. I repeated those words again and again until I could say them confidently. This process taught me that repetition is very important in learning English. The more you practice, the more your brain remembers words and sentences automatically. While practicing my speech, I also worked on my body language. I learned that standing straight, smiling, and making eye contact with the audience is very important. At first, it felt awkward. I looked at myself in the mirror and practiced my smile. I practiced walking to the front of the room and holding my notes. I realized that even small gestures like these can make you feel more confident. Body language sends a message not only to the audience, but also to yourself. When you stand confidently, your mind feels more powerful, and fear starts to reduce. Another important part of my preparation was breaking the speech into small parts. I did not try to memorize the entire speech in one go. Instead, I practiced the introduction first. Once I was confident with the introduction, I practiced the middle part about my hobbies and favorite things. Finally, I practiced the ending, where I thanked my teacher and classmates. By practicing in small steps, I avoided feeling overwhelmed. This method also helped me remember the sentences better because I was learning in pieces instead of all at once. I also made a habit of practicing in front of family and friends. I asked my parents to listen and give feedback. They encouraged me and pointed out small mistakes I could improve. Sometimes I practiced in front of my younger brother, who laughed at my funny mistakes. At first, this made me nervous, but later I realized it was good practice. I learned that making mistakes in a safe environment is helpful. It prepares you for the real situation. One of the most important lessons I learned during preparation was to control my fear through breathing. Every time I felt nervous, I took a deep breath and counted slowly to 3. This helped me calm my heart and focus on the words I had prepared. I realized that controlling your body helps control your mind. When you feel fear, your body reacts first, and your mind follows. By practicing deep breathing, I gained more control over my nerves. By the end of my preparation, I started feeling a small sense of excitement. The speech that once seemed impossible now felt achievable. I realized that preparation is not only about memorizing sentences. It is about building confidence, controlling fear, and learning how to present yourself. I knew that when I stood in front of the class, I could rely on my practice. I could speak slowly, smile, and finish my speech, even if I made small mistakes. Chapter 2 taught me that confidence does not come magically. It comes from preparation, practice, and small steps taken every day. I understood that preparation gives you a safety net. Even when fear tries to take over, the sentences you have practiced will guide you. The next chapter will take you to the day of my first speech, where preparation and fear met face to face. You will see how all the practice I did helped me survive the moment, and how I learned that mistakes are not the end of the world. By learning from preparation, anyone can face their first speech in English with courage. This chapter shows that the journey of speaking English begins long before you step in front of an audience. It starts with choosing simple sentences, practicing regularly, controlling your body and mind, and believing in your ability to try. If you follow these steps, your first speech will become a step forward toward confidence and improvement. Chapter 3. The day of my first speech finally arrived. I woke up early, feeling a mixture of excitement and nervousness. My stomach was full of butterflies, and my hands felt cold and shaky. I kept thinking about all the preparation I had done, but still, fear tried to take over. I reminded myself to breathe slowly and remember my practice. I have prepared simple sentences. I can do this, I kept repeating in my mind. I knew that all the hours I had spent practicing, recording my voice, and rehearsing in front of the mirror were not wasted. They were my safety net, ready to help me when I needed it the most. As I walked into the classroom, I noticed my classmates talking quietly, some smiling and some looking nervous like me. My teacher called my name, and suddenly, my heart started racing even faster. I froze for a moment, unsure if I could walk to the front. For a second, I imagined running back to my seat, but I knew I had prepared for this moment. I took a deep breath and stood up. Every step I took toward the front of the class felt heavy, but I reminded myself that courage is simply moving forward, even when you are afraid. When I reached the front, I saw all eyes on me. My heart was pounding so fast that it felt like it would jump out of my chest. For a few seconds, I forgot my first line. Panic started to rise inside me, and I felt my hands trembling. But then I remembered my practice. I remembered that it is okay to make mistakes, and that speaking slowly is better than rushing and forgetting words. I looked at my notes, took a slow breath, and started speaking. "My name is Ali," I said. The words came out slowly at first, but clearly. I paused, smiled at my classmates, and continued. "I am 10 years old. I like reading books." With each sentence, I felt a little more confident. I realized that my fear was gradually reducing. My classmates were listening quietly, not laughing, not judging. This small realization was a huge relief. I understood that sometimes we imagine that everyone is watching our mistakes, but in reality, people are often more focused on their own thoughts. As I moved to the middle part of my speech, talking about my favorite hobbies, I stumbled on a word. I forgot how to say football for a moment. I froze, my mind blank. But then I remembered something my teacher had told me. If you forget a word, explain it in another way. So I said, I like playing a ball game with my friends. Everyone understood, and I felt proud that I continued instead of stopping. That moment taught me a very important lesson. Fluency is not about never making mistakes. Fluency is about speaking clearly, keeping your sentences simple, and continuing even after mistakes. By the time I reached the ending of my speech, I was feeling more confident. I smiled, thanked my teacher, and said, "Thank you for listening to my speech." As I finished, I heard light clapping from my classmates. That small applause felt like a huge victory. In that moment, I realized that courage and preparation were more powerful than fear. I also realized that mistakes do not define you. Your willingness to try does. I felt proud of myself for completing my first speech in English. After finishing the speech, I walked back to my seat, feeling a mixture of relief and excitement. My hands were still a little shaky, but my heart was happy. I had faced my fear, spoken in English, and survived. That day, I learned that fear is temporary, but confidence grows when you take action. I also noticed that preparation had played a huge role. Without the sentences I had written and the practice I had done, I might have frozen completely. But because I had prepared, I had a guide that helped me move forward, sentence by sentence. That day also taught me the importance of self-belief. I realized that everyone begins somewhere. Every speaker, every confident English learner has stood in front of an audience for the first time, feeling nervous and afraid. What makes the difference is the courage to try and the effort to prepare. The more you practice and the more you believe in yourself, the more your confidence will grow. Even if your first speech is not perfect, it is a step forward in your journey. By the end of the day, I was no longer afraid of speaking English. I had made mistakes, yes, but I had learned that mistakes are part of learning. I had discovered that speaking slowly, using simple sentences, and taking deep breaths are powerful tools to manage fear. Most importantly, I had realized that the first speech is a beginning, not the end. It is the starting point of a journey where you improve step by step. Chapter 3 is a reminder that your first speech may be scary, but it is also the moment that changes your confidence forever. The key moments are standing up despite fear, speaking slowly, continuing after mistakes, and feeling the pride of completing your speech. These are the lessons every beginner should remember. In the next chapter, I will reflect on what went right and what went wrong, and I will share the most important tips to improve even further. You will see how analyzing your performance after your first speech can make your next one even better. This chapter shows that facing fear, speaking slowly, and continuing despite mistakes are the secrets to surviving your first speech. Every beginner who prepares and believes in themselves can stand in front of an audience and speak English confidently. It may feel impossible at first, but with small steps, courage, and practice, it is completely possible. Chapter 4. After giving my first speech, I felt a mix of emotions. I was proud, relieved, and a little tired. My heart was still beating fast, but I also felt a sense of accomplishment. That small moment of applause, even though it was light, gave me a huge boost of confidence. I realized that the first speech is never perfect, and it is not supposed to be. What matters is that I tried, I spoke, and I learned something new about myself. Reflection is an important part of learning, and this is exactly what I did next. I decided to think carefully about what went right, what went wrong, and what I could improve for the next time. The first thing I noticed was that I spoke too fast in the middle of my speech. At the beginning, I had spoken slowly, but when I got a little more comfortable, I started rushing. Speaking too fast made me stumble over a few words, and I could feel my nervousness returning. This taught me an important lesson. Fluency is not about speed. It is about speaking clearly, using simple sentences, and maintaining a steady pace. I realized that speaking slowly gives your brain more time to find words, helps you pronounce them correctly, and also makes it easier for the audience to understand you. This was a key insight that I knew I would use in every future speech. Next, I reflected on my body language. I noticed that I looked down at my notes too often. My eyes rarely met the faces of my classmates. Looking down made me feel safer, but it also reduced my confidence and connection with the audience. I understood that eye contact is a small but powerful tool. It shows that you are confident, engaged, and aware of your audience. From that moment, I decided to practice looking up while speaking, even if it meant glancing quickly at my notes. Small changes like these make a big difference in how your speech is received. I also thought about my mistakes during the speech. I stumbled over one or two words and forgot how to say football for a moment. At first, I felt embarrassed. But then I remembered a very important lesson. Mistakes are part of learning. Nobody is perfect, especially when learning a new language. What matters is not the mistake itself, but how you handle it. I had successfully explained the word in another way, and my classmates understood me. That small action taught me that confidence comes from continuing despite mistakes. Each time you recover from a mistake, you become stronger and more prepared for the future. Another important realization was the power of practice. Every sentence I had written, every time I had rehearsed in front of the mirror, and every deep breath I had taken helped me survive the moment. Preparation is not just about memorizing words. It is about building a safety net for your mind. It gives you confidence, reduces fear, and ensures that even if you forget a word, you can continue. I understood that preparation is more valuable than perfection. The more you practice, the more your brain and body learn to work together during stressful situations. After reflecting on what went wrong and what went right, I created a small plan for improvement. First, I would practice speaking slowly and clearly every day. Second, I would practice maintaining eye contact while speaking. Third, I would focus on handling mistakes calmly, remembering that they are natural and not shameful. Fourth, I would continue writing simple sentences and gradually learn new words to include in my speech. This plan gave me a sense of control. It showed me that improvement is possible, and every speech I give in the future can be better than the last. I also realized something very important about mindset. After my first speech, I understood that confidence is not something you have from the beginning. It is something you build step by step. Each time you try, each time you speak, and each time you recover from mistakes, your confidence grows. Fear does not disappear overnight, but it becomes smaller and easier to manage. This realization motivated me to continue practicing, learning, and speaking English, even when I felt nervous. By the end of this reflection, I felt ready for the next challenge. I knew that my first speech was not perfect, but it was a success in many ways. I had learned lessons that I could apply to every future speech. I had faced my fear, spoken in English, and survived. Most importantly, I had discovered that courage is not the absence of fear. It is moving forward despite fear. This chapter taught me that reflecting on your performance is as important as preparing for the speech itself. By analyzing mistakes, celebrating small victories, and creating a plan for improvement, you can grow faster and become more confident with each attempt. Chapter 4 shows that improvement is a continuous process. Giving a speech is not just about standing in front of people and saying words. It is about learning from every step, analyzing performance, and building confidence through reflection. By practicing, observing, and planning, you can transform fear into growth. The next chapter will explore how that first speech changed my confidence in the long term, and how small actions every day helped me improve my English and speaking skills. You will see that every beginner can become confident with patience, practice, and the right mindset. This chapter emphasizes that reflection is a powerful tool. By noticing what went right, what went wrong, and what can be improved, you can turn each experience into a lesson. Every speech, every conversation, and every attempt at speaking English is an opportunity to grow. The journey of learning English is not about perfection. It is about continuous progress, courage, and learning from each moment. Chapter 5. After reflecting on my first speech and realizing what went right and what went wrong, I noticed a change in myself. I was no longer as afraid to speak English as I had been before. That small moment of standing in front of my classmates, speaking slowly, and completing my speech gave me a sense of courage I had never felt before. It was like crossing a bridge I thought I could never cross. I realized that giving my first speech was not just about one day in the classroom. It was the beginning of a journey that would gradually transform my confidence and my ability to speak English. One of the most important lessons I learned from this experience is that small, consistent actions create big results over time. After my first speech, I started practicing English every day, even if it was just for a few minutes. I spoke to myself in the mirror, describing my day in simple sentences. I read small English stories aloud and tried to remember new words. I even spoke to my friends in simple English whenever I had a chance. These small actions may have seemed insignificant at the time, but over weeks and months, they added up to real improvement. My vocabulary grew, my pronunciation became clearer, and my confidence increased. I also realized the importance of setting small goals. My first speech was a big goal in itself, But after that, I set smaller goals to keep improving. For example, my next goal was to speak for 3 minutes without stopping. Another goal was to learn 5 new words every day and use them in sentences. Breaking my learning into small, achievable steps made English feel less overwhelming. I no longer felt like I had to know everything at once. Instead, I focused on gradual improvement. This approach not only made learning easier, but it also reduced my fear. I knew that even small progress was still progress, and every effort I made was bringing me closer to fluency. Another lesson I learned is that comparison is dangerous. Before my first speech, I often compared myself to classmates who spoke English more fluently. I felt nervous and inadequate because I thought I would never be as good as them. But after that first speech, I realized that every person learns at a different pace. Comparing myself to others only made me anxious. Instead, I began focusing on my own progress. I measured success by how much I improved, not by how others performed. This mindset helped me stay motivated and enjoy the learning process. I started celebrating small victories, like remembering a new word or completing a short conversation in English. These small wins built my confidence step by step. One of the biggest transformations came from my belief in myself. Before my first speech, I doubted my ability to speak English. I thought I would freeze or make too many mistakes. After the speech, I saw that I could handle challenges even when I was nervous. This realization changed my attitude toward learning. I understood that confidence is not something you are born with. It is something you build through action, practice, and persistence. Each time I spoke English, even in small ways, my confidence grew stronger. I started to believe that I could speak in front of more people, participate in conversations, and even express my thoughts clearly in English. Daily practice became my secret to improvement. I followed simple habits that made a big difference over time. I practiced speaking for 2 minutes every morning, describing what I saw, what I felt, or what I planned to do that day. I listened to English songs and repeated sentences aloud. I read small paragraphs and tried to speak them clearly. I also kept a notebook where I wrote down new words and short sentences every day. These daily actions strengthened my brain's ability to remember words, build sentences, and speak more confidently. I learned that consistency is more important than perfection. Even 5 minutes of practice every day is better than 1 hour of practice once a week. Most importantly, I learned that every fluent speaker was once a beginner. My first speech reminded me that nobody starts as an expert. Every person who speaks English fluently today faced fear, made mistakes, and practiced repeatedly. This thought motivated me to continue learning. I stopped being afraid of mistakes because I knew they were part of the journey. Every error I made was a lesson that helped me speak better next time. By focusing on effort and growth rather than perfection, I started enjoying the process of learning English. Chapter 5 shows that the impact of the first speech goes far beyond a single classroom moment. It is the start of long-term improvement, self-confidence, and personal growth. The lessons I learned, the importance of small, consistent actions, daily practice, setting achievable goals, avoiding comparisons, and believing in myself became the foundation of my English learning journey. This chapter emphasizes that learning English is not about instant results. It is about continuous progress, courage, and persistence. Every small step you take builds momentum and leads to greater confidence. In the next chapter, I will provide a clear, practical guide for giving your first speech in English. I will share a simple structure, tips to manage fear, and advice on using mistakes to your advantage. By following these steps, you can stand in front of an audience and speak English with confidence, just as I did after my first speech. This chapter highlights that improvement is a journey, and the first speech is only the beginning of a brighter, more confident future. Chapter 6. Now that I have shared my first experience of giving a speech in English and the lessons I learned from it, let's talk about how you can give your first speech with confidence. Many beginners feel nervous when they imagine speaking in front of people, but the truth is, anyone can do it with the right approach. Giving your first speech is not about being perfect. It is about taking the first step, speaking clearly, and learning along the way. The key is preparation, practice, and having the right mindset. In this chapter, I will guide you step by step so that when your turn comes, you are ready to speak without fear. The first step is choosing a simple topic. You do not need to select something complicated or difficult. The best topics for your first speech are things you know well, like yourself, your hobbies, your favorite food, or your family. For example, you can start with, "My name is Sarah. I am 12 years old. I like reading stories. My favorite subject is English." These simple sentences are easy to remember, and they give you something solid to say. Trying to speak about a complicated topic with difficult words will only increase stress and make it harder to remember your lines. Keep it simple and clear. The second step is writing your speech in short, easy sentences. Long sentences with complex words can confuse your brain when you are nervous. Write down your speech like a conversation. For instance, you can divide it into 3 parts: introduction, middle, and ending. In the introduction, greet your audience and introduce yourself. In the middle, talk about 1 or 2 points related to your topic, like your hobbies or favorite things. In the ending, thank your teacher and classmates for listening. Writing short sentences helps your brain remember words easily and gives you confidence to speak without panicking. The third step is practice. This is the most important part. Practice your speech several times aloud. Stand in front of a mirror and say your sentences. Record your voice and listen to it. Notice which words you are pronouncing incorrectly and repeat them. Practicing aloud will help your brain connect the written words with spoken words. You will notice that after a few days, the sentences come naturally. You can also practice in front of family or friends. Ask them to listen and give feedback. Small corrections from them can help you improve a lot. The more you practice, the more confident you will feel when the actual moment comes. The fourth step is controlling your fear. Nervousness is normal, but it can be managed. Before stepping in front of the audience, take a few deep breaths. Count slowly to 3 while inhaling and exhaling. This helps slow down your heartbeat and relax your body. Remember, your fear is temporary, but the courage you build by trying will stay with you forever. Also, remember that the audience is not there to judge you. Most people want to listen and support you. Thinking positively before you start speaking can make a big difference. The fifth step is to focus on communication, not perfection. Many beginners stop speaking if they forget a word or make a mistake. This is the wrong approach. If you forget a word, explain it in another way. For example, if you forget the word umbrella, you can say, "It is something we use when it rains." The goal of speaking is to be understood, not to be perfect. Mistakes are natural, and every fluent speaker has made thousands of them. What matters is that you continue speaking with confidence. The sixth step is to use body language. Stand straight, smile, and make eye contact with your audience. Small gestures like these make you look confident and help reduce nervousness. You do not need to make dramatic movements. Just standing straight and looking at people while speaking will make a huge difference. Also, holding your notes carefully and speaking slowly will make you appear more composed. These small habits make your speech smooth and help your audience connect with what you are saying. Finally, remember to celebrate your courage. After your speech, no matter how it goes, take a moment to feel proud of yourself. Giving your first speech is a huge step. It shows that you are willing to try, learn, and improve. Write down what went well and what you can improve for next time. Reflecting on your performance will help you grow faster. Each speech you give after this will feel easier, and your confidence will increase. Chapter 6 shows that giving your first speech in English is not impossible. By following simple steps, choosing a simple topic, writing short sentences, practicing aloud, controlling fear, focusing on communication, using body language, and celebrating your courage, you can speak in front of an audience confidently. Remember, your first speech is just the beginning. It is the first step toward becoming a fluent and confident English speaker. Every attempt you make builds your skills and confidence. Now it is your turn. You can prepare your first speech today, try it in front of a mirror, or speak to your friends or family. Take a deep breath, use the simple sentences you have prepared, and remember that mistakes are part of learning. Your first speech will not be perfect, but it will be powerful because it marks the start of your journey. The courage you build today will help you speak English better every day. And before we finish, don't forget to take action. Write in the comments, "I am ready to give my first speech in English," and tell me your topic. Like this video if it helped you. Share it with your friends who are afraid to speak English, and subscribe to the channel for more easy and practical English lessons. Every step you take brings you closer to speaking English confidently. Start today, and I will see you in the next class.